Hello, this is Adrian, and this is part two of our talk about consciousness. Just to recap quickly, we say the lower consciousness is life diminishing, life minus, and higher consciousness is life enhancing. This is extending, this is projection. What I want to talk about now is the idea of relationships. Relationships is basically how we relate to ourselves and to life in general. But we relate according to our level of consciousness. Now, in the lower levels of consciousness, and it's very interesting to understand this, you have, let me just give you an idea. This is the sign I use for relationships, and this is you. Okay, that's you in the middle there. So relationship is how we relate to each other and how we relate to life in general, and how we think and how we see life relating to us. And now we can only see according to our level of consciousness. We will not experience acceptance when we're living in grief. We will not experience willingness or love, joy, and peace. You do not experience that when you're down here. So some people say you must just lift your vibration, but it's not that simple. It means people say you must just change your attention. But how do you change your attention when all you can attend to, in other words, all the only stuff that's there for you to, the only information, vibration, and energy that's available to you is down here. So what happens with relationships? When down here, your relationship to yourself is life diminishing, as we said, so you will be negative towards yourself and towards other people. It sucks the energy out of you and you won't last. Okay, so that's basically. So then if you look at the nature of relationship between people, it looks something like this. Okay, so you have two people in opposition to each other. The one tries to change the other. The one is always busy fighting with the other, comparing themselves to each other. And there you have the compare, convince, and compete. Those are the three C's that works down here. You compare, you compete, and you convince. When you can compete with someone and take them down or take them out of the game, of course you won and you go back up to pride. When you can convince someone, then again you go up into pride. When you fail to convince, you go into shame. When you try and create a picture in someone's mind and they don't buy the picture, then you feel kind of stupid about the whole idea. And again, you go back down again. All right. Yeah, people compare each other to the one to the other and see if they can, if they live there and the other one, they can get the other people to live down there, then I compare myself favorably to another person. Okay. So when I'm there and I compare myself to someone there, then I am diminished. That makes sense, the whole thing. Convince is trying to convince someone of something that's not actually real. And if I can get someone to be convinced, if I can convince someone, then again, I can go into pride. I got you, kind of thing. And then, of course, compete. When we compete with each other, of course, the one is not, and competition down here is not outperforming. It's about taking the other person out of the game as much as you can, or convincing other people that you are worse off than they and you are better off than them. So that's, and then in that way, you're actually competing with them by comparison and convincing. So relationships down here is all about those three things. So what happens actually is the one is actually taking the energy from the other person. There's no relationship. This is actually a contract. Okay, a contract to compete, convince, and compare. That's what people do with each other. If I can convince you that I'm beautiful and fantastic, and I win, I go into pride, and I'll take you up there with me for a while. But then at some stage or another, you will change, and then I will just dump you down there and keep you down there if it's possible. It's called discard. That's the other word to do that. Okay, so down here you don't have relationship. You have contracts, and you have comparisons, competitions, and convincing each other. Now, when you go up into higher consciousness, then you really have that thing. that is where you have an exchange of energy that is actually life enhancing. There's no three C's down there, up here, because you're practicing neutrality, willingness, and acceptance. You are neutral, mean life. There is no meaning in anything other than the meaning I give life. And then there's willingness to look at the good part of someone else and find something good in someone, or the willingness to listen, the willingness to learn. Then there's acceptance, accepting another person as being different. They're different from us, and nothing is the same than us, and that's okay. Then we can reason, we can think. Now, if you talk to someone, you get to the point where you understand they can't reason, okay? Because again, the frontal cortex isn't working, so they can't reason. They will fight you, and they will try and convince you, and they will take you down if you don't agree with them. But they can't convince. They try and convince you, but they can't never reason. There's no reason with it. Then, of course, you get love, joy, and peace, and those are three of the highest levels of consciousness. And when you practice these three, these parts, they really just run all by themselves. When you get to these, then you can get to this. Okay, so basically, if you must break it up, then you go there. When you get to there, you can actually get to love, peace, and joy for yourself. And this is where you start loving yourself. Because when you love yourself, you can understand that anything you think is really meaningless. It's only got the meaning that you give it. The second thing, if you are willing to do stuff, and I've practiced the willingness thing quite often, and when you declare yourself as willing, then the forces of the universe starts conspiring to help you, okay? Because you're not alone in this, okay? And then the acceptance comes where you accept what is being offered to you by the universe, and then you can reason. You can reason it, okay, fine, this happened and that happened, and that's cool. You can look at your reticular activation system, because your frontal cortex is online again, and your reticular activation system will then start looking for those things that are, okay, there's willingness. I have willingness. The universe sees that you're willing. Your reticular activation system activates, and you see opportunities. You say, okay, if I'm willing, let me, lead me, show me. And your reticular activation system then goes online, and there you go, son. Okay, fine. Let's look at opportunities. Let's look and see what we can find, and then we can actually go further and create a better life for ourselves. Now, joy is an interesting thing. I've had a few of those experiences in my life where it's almost like it comes from nowhere. It's just like you're in a beautiful surrounding, a beautiful place. You were someone you really love, and so on, and then you have this sudden it's like an inside. It's like it's very difficult to explain in words, but it's this energy that just energizes you, and it is like pretty awesome to have those experiences. Like, whoa, this real joy, and this joy is really what scripture even talks about, the joy of the Lord. It's not yours. It doesn't come from you. It comes through you. So this comes through you and then goes out into the world where other people pick it up, and then they can extend it. And they will drink it in for sure, unless, of course, they're down here. They don't do joy. They don't like joy much. Okay, so the joy is like I said, this is the joy of the Lord. And scripture tells us peace, it talks about the peace of God and the God of peace. When you live in a certain way, then the peace of God will be with you, and the God of peace will be with you. And it's quite interesting to go and study those scriptures and look at it and say, what does it say when you look at everything that's beautiful, admirable, which is positive, so good things, and you start putting it into practice. Okay, that's the most important part. When you put it into practice, the peace of God will be with you. In other words, the peace will flow through you when you start living in those higher consciousness. So it's not just sitting on a mat somewhere and going into alpha state and everything happens for you. It doesn't work like that. So it is really, you have a part, and there's a divine part, you have a part, and then there's a result, because it comes flowing through you. You're opening the channels, you're opening the consciousness so that it flows through you and into the world, and people will pick it up. And you can actually see that when people live in this higher levels of consciousness, the way animals respond to them. I can tell you a quick one here. I was doing a session with a woman once. A business was totally stuck. She was really struggling with the business. Couldn't go. She was a very good gym instructor, but she couldn't get clients. There was no way that she could get clients. So what happened is we took her for a session, and we did the session. I think it was a Friday, Thursday or Friday. We did the session, and then on Monday she came back and says some miracle has happened. That the clients are just coming. The people that she's seen around the gym quite often are now suddenly saying, "Oh, I see you now. I see you now. I'd like you to be my gym instructor." She would walk in the shop, and the people would say to her, "Can you're the gym instructor? Can you help me?" Within a week, she was oversubscribed. Why was that? It's because she moved from here, where she was worried and unhappy and in grief about her business that wasn't working. She moved up, into the higher consciousness, and suddenly life just happened. Life just started happening, and that again is the idea of the projection and the extension. When you extend that, you become again neutral, willingness, acceptance. People will accept. People want to accept something because acceptance is a higher consciousness, but they don't compare or compete or convince. Okay, I hope I'm making sense here. So that this thing works perfectly. If you can put all the pictures together, then this whole idea of consciousness is so perfect. Now, in the next video, we'll talk about being. I know there's a lot of different ways of interpreting being, but we'll get to that